In the last 24 hours, the center of the battle has been a nerve-wracking search to bring the weapons systems officer from the downed F-15E back to safety from deep inside Iran. This is no longer a routine mission. It is now a race against time on the edge of life and death. At the same time, an A-10 Warthog was also reportedly hit and damaged while charging into a CSAR combat rescue mission. The atmosphere right now is extremely tense, and every passing minute could change the entire situation. This is CSAR, Combat Search and Rescue, and the A-10 was built for moments like this. In the Sandy role, it circles overhead like a flying shield, hunting down and crushing any threat moving toward the missing American airmen. If Iranian forces are tightening the net, the A-10 is the first wall of fire standing in their way. Right now, everything hangs on one hope: that the weapons systems officer is still alive, still hidden, and still staying one step ahead of the enemy. One crew member has already been pulled out of danger by United States Special Operations Forces, but the rescue mission is far from over. The other remains somewhere inside the combat zone, and every passing minute has become a breathless race against death for the A-10 Warthog. Even though the United States holds the advantage in the skies, Iranian airspace is still far from truly safe. All it takes is one sudden surface-to-air strike from the ground, especially a shoulder-fired missile, for the entire situation to turn in an instant. Iran is trying to show that it has played a more dangerous new air defense card, the Bavar 373, a system seen as a homegrown step in the direction of Russia's S-300. As the war drags on, Russia and China are believed to be helping Tehran with technology and technical support. But the threat that really makes pilots nervous is something far simpler: shoulder-fired missiles. Small, mobile, and hard to spot. And if Iran truly has thousands of them, then any low-flying aircraft could be entering a deadly hunting zone. No one can say for certain where all of those weapons came from, but what worries military planners most is the possibility that Iran may be hiding thousands of shoulder-fired missiles. And once those weapons are scattered across the country, wiping them out becomes almost impossible. Iran is simply too large, with too many hiding places and too many proxy networks operating in the shadows. That means for any pilot flying low, the real danger is not always what can be seen, but what is waiting silently for the right moment to strike. Iran may have thousands of shoulder-fired missiles in play, and at this stage, finding and eliminating all of them is almost impossible. What makes this even more alarming is that early reports suggest the F-15E may have been hit in a carefully timed ambush. That kind of attack is especially dangerous because it could come from a simple shoulder-fired missile, or from a more advanced surface-to-air system lying in wait for the perfect moment to strike. This is the kind of strike that can put even a seasoned pilot in a deadly bind. The crew may have been fully alert and doing everything right, but if the enemy stays silent until the last second and only switches on the radar when the jet is almost directly overhead, the reaction window is nearly gone. That is why the Strike Eagle may have been caught in exactly that kind of ambush. But there is also the real possibility that it was hit by a shoulder-fired missile suddenly launched from the ground. The A-10 was reportedly hit near the Strait of Hormuz, and that alone shows how dangerous this fight has become. The pilot likely realized the aircraft could no longer stay on station, forcing the mission to be handed off to other A-10s still pushing into the danger zone. At the same time, videos appear to show Iranian forces racing in with small civilian-style cars and taking shots at helicopters whenever they see an opening. It paints a chaotic battlefield where danger can erupt from the sky or the ground in a matter of seconds. Those were HH-60 Pave Hawk helicopters, aircraft built almost specifically for combat search and rescue missions in the middle of chaos. When gunmen on the ground started taking reckless shots at them, the response was likely swift, with a 10S diving in hard to crush the threat. But the bigger problem is that there were too many armed forces spread across that area. That turns every second of the rescue into a high-pressure fight, where one delay or one wrong move can change everything. As the A-10 dove in and opened fire on the target below, The real danger may have been waiting on the surrounding hills, where other gunmen were ready to fire back. The A-10 is famous for being incredibly tough, almost like a flying tank, with titanium armor protecting the pilot in the middle of the fight. But even a machine like that has limits. If it took enough fire, the pilot may have had only one final option: try to drag the aircraft away from the kill zone and then punch out near the Strait of Hormuz. There are growing signs that the A-10 may not have been brought down by a major missile strike, but instead worn down by concentrated small arms fire coming up from the ground. Iran released a video claiming it had scored the hit, but the footage is shaky and far from convincing. What stands out is that the A-10 does not appear to be maneuvering at all, and for any combat pilot, if a missile were truly coming in, the natural survival move would be to brake hard, maneuver fast, and do everything possible to evade. That is why the theory of heavy ground fire sounds more believable, and it also shows just how chaotic and dangerous this battle has become. If a missile had really been coming in, the A-10 would have been dumping flares everywhere just to buy a few extra seconds to survive. But the strange part is that the video feels more like a dramatic showpiece than solid battlefield proof. It almost tries to sell the idea that the A-10 took a massive hit and still calmly kept flying toward the Strait of Hormuz. And because it looks almost too perfect and too polished, a lot of people are going to ask the same question: is this real footage? Or just edited propaganda? Maybe even generated by artificial intelligence? Iran rolled out another so-called battlefield victory, claiming it had shot down a US F-16. But the image they showed tells a very different story. The engine looks far too small, the aircraft looks almost miniature, and the tiny flame at the tail is nowhere near what you would expect from a real fighter going down in combat. Put simply, it sounds dramatic, but the evidence looks weak. To many viewers, this feels less like a real military kill, and more like rushed propaganda dressed up as breaking war news. When you look at this crash site, it does not feel like the aftermath of a US fighter being blasted out of the sky. It feels more like a clumsy staged scene. That small fire burning near the wreckage looks less like combat damage and more like a makeshift campfire. And the men standing beside the so-called F-16 only make the image look even less convincing. Put simply, if this is supposed to prove a major battlefield kill, it comes across more like rushed propaganda than real evidence from a modern war zone. Recently, HH-60 Jolly Green helicopters have surged into one of the most dangerous missions on the battlefield, flying alongside other US assets to pull people back from the edge of disaster. This is American air power at its clearest and most dramatic combat search and rescue under extreme pressure. Put simply, it is a powerful display of pilot skill, rescue team precision, and the unshakable determination to bring their people home. What happens next in the hunt for that downed weapons systems officer could reshape the fight over Iran. More than a month into this war, US Pleasant Inteen and partner forces, backed by Israel, have been hammering missile sites, nuclear-linked targets, naval assets, refineries, petrochemical plants, and regime security hubs. And right in the middle of that storm is the F-15E, one of America's hardest-working strike aircraft, carrying a huge share of the mission day after day. This F-15E is the sharp edge of the mission, pushing deep into dangerous airspace, hitting its target, and then fighting its way back out. The U.S. objective remains clear: cripple Iran's path to a nuclear weapon before that threat grows even bigger. And now, the spotlight is locked on the F-15E from the 494th Fighter Squadron at RAF Lakenheath, one of the hardest hitters carrying this war on its wings. Iran is trying to use what it calls a new advanced air defense system to claim it is taking back control of the skies. But the bigger picture tells a very different story. With more than 12,000 targets already hit, the scale of damage speaks for itself. Yes, they may have scored a few lucky shots on some aircraft with low-level fire, maybe man pads, or even a modified Bavar, 373. But the moment those systems switch on and reveal themselves, they also become prime targets for the next wave of U.S. strikes. They flew straight into danger and moved with the kind of precision that turns a rescue into a battlefield miracle. And if the A-10 was truly used to help save that downed airman, then this was not just a recovery mission. It was a combat legend unfolding in real time. The Warthog would have blasted open a path through chaos, shielded the rescue force, and bought those precious seconds that mean the difference between life and death. Put simply, this is what American air power looks like when it refuses to leave one of its own behind.